Om Sri Sai Ram. Upanishad Vahini, Chapter-11. Taittiriya Upanishad. Knowledge of Brahman, Brahma Vidya, is the specific theme of this Upanishad. It has 3 chapters on instruction, Sikshavalli, bliss, Anandavalli, or Brahman, Brahmavalli, and Brigu, Briguvalli. In the chapter on instruction, certain methods are detailed to overcome obstacles placed in people's way by gods and sages, devas and rishis, and to acquire one-pointedness in mental exertions. This chapter has 12 sections. The last 2 chapters are very important for those seeking knowledge of Brahman, Brahma Jnana. Both chapters give instruction on the knowledge of the sage Brigu, Varuni Vidya, which leads to liberation. So, they are practically the same. For convenience of study, it is dealt with in 2 sections, that's all. The objective world is caused by ignorance, with bondage the result. In the Sikshavalli, subjects are dealt with that are not antagonistic to actions, karma, like the combination of letters according to Ephenic rails, Samhita, and also objects that are associated with dedicated action, like worship, upasana. These lead to self-rule, Swarajya, but the complete destruction of worldly flux, samsara, will not be accomplished by just these. Worship exists along with desire. So, like activity, even worship cannot bring about liberation. All this flux, this objective world, samsara, is due to ignorance, ajnana, and bondage is the result. So, when ignorance is destroyed, the bonds loosen and liberation is attained. Ignorance is there, persisting through natural causes. It is just like the delusion that your train is moving when actually your train is stationary and the train on adjacent rails is moving. Watch only your train and you know the truth. Watch the other train and you are deceived. There is no use seeking to know the cause of this delusion. Seek how to escape from it. This ignorance, which is the seed out of which the flux sprouts, can be destroyed only by knowledge of Brahman, Brahmajnana. There is no other method. Liberation cannot be produced by any action. All that is caused, everything that is the result, is short-lived. This is evident from the scriptures, shastras, as well as from experience and reason. The scriptures speak of aspirants who discarded even higher regions like heaven, which are attainable by persons who perform the prescribed rites. For liberation is behind the reach of those who dwell therein. Heaven and hell are results of actions. They are objects made, so they cannot be eternal. They are conditioned by birth, growth, decay, and death. They don't exist from the very beginning. They were made. Before that act, they were not. That which once was not and later will not be is as good as not, even in the present. The fruit of action, karma, shares this quality. So, it cannot grant eternal joy. No effort can result in the creation of space, akasa. Now, what already exists cannot be produced anew. Liberation, moksha, exists and is there self-evident. It cannot be produced anew by any action, karma. The moment the ignorance, ajnana, that hides it from experience disappears, you are liberated and know your reality. You are free from bondage. Prior to that moment, you were free, but you imagined you were bound and you behaved as if you are bound. How then are you to get rid of this idea that you are bound. By listening to the teachings of the Vedas with faith therein, only then can ignorance perish. The chapter on Brahman is in this Upanishad has the task of presenting these teachings. It is in the nature of things that ignorance prompts people to crave plentiful fruits through the performance of actions. Then they become despondent, and the cravings only bind them more and don't help to make them free. The craving for fruit is hard to show off, though this fearful flux of growth and decay makes them shiver in dread. Brahman is truth, omniscience, eternal. In this Upanishad, the three words truth, spiritual wisdom, Sathya, Jnana, and eternal Ananta are meaningfully affixed to Brahman. To explain its characteristics, these are three distinct words signifying qualities seeking to mark out the one from the rest. The one Brahman from other types of Brahman that don't have these traits. That is to say, Brahman is not to be confused with anything that is not truth, spiritual wisdom, and eternal. Everything that is limited by time, space, and objectivity is inert, jada, material, and apparently different from Brahman. The characteristics of truth, spiritual wisdom, and eternity help to differentiate and distinguish the real Brahman from kindred and similar phenomena. Whichever form a thing is determined to have, if that form is unchanged, then it is referred to as truth. If that form undergoes change, then it is falsehood. Modification is the sign of untruth. Absence of modification is the sign of truth. Brahman is truth, Sathya, that is to say, it has no modification. It is eternal, Nitya, unaffected by time. All that is not Brahman, that is the world, Jagat, is subject to change. All objects are subject to the triple process of the intellect, Buddhi, known, the knower, and knowledge. Hence, the intellect is spoken of as a cave guha where the threefold process resides. Do not swerve from truth, duty, well-being of all. In the Taittiriya Brahmana, all as well as this Upanishad, dharma is also treated elaborately. It has three forms: desirable, kamya, produced by a cause, na imitta ka, and eternal, nitya. The scripture shastras seldom command that action, karma, be pursued. There is no need to do so, for action comes naturally to people. Desire, kama, is the prompter of such action, and people get various fruits thereof. The scriptures teach only the ways of directing this natural activity to ensure desirable objects. The Upanishad exhorts you not to serve you from duties of learning and teaching, saying, serve you not from the true and the truth. From the true it will not do to serve you, nor from dharma, nor from welfare and well-being, nor from duties to gods and fathers. Treat thy mother as God. Works that are free from faults should be resorted to, not others. The science of spirituality is the highest field of experiential knowledge. Listening, rumination, and concentration are the three steps in realization. Listening refers to the Vedas, which have to be revered in faith and learned by heart from a spiritual teacher, Guru. This confers the knowledge of the unknowable. Rumination, manana, is the austerity tapas taught in the chapter on Bhrigu. By this process, the essence of Brahman can be fixed in the mind. Concentration helps the development of single-minded attention on the principle so installed. The two chapters on Brahma and Bhrigu expound on the discipline that ensures the realization of Brahman, Brahma Vidya. The chapter on Brahman teaches, the chapter on by Bhrigu proves by experience. Bhrigu, Varuna's son, tells him that Brahman is food, Anna, life breath, Prana, the senses, the mind, Manas, speech, walk, etc. But since the son soon learns that these are not Brahman, he declares that Brahman is that from which these are born and by which they live and function. He first believed that food is Brahman, since all beings exist on food. But later he feels that Brahman is much more inclusive. He asks for direct teaching of the real, the Brahman. Thereafter he is told that austerity tapas is Brahman, for it is that by which Brahman, the reality, is known. He discovers by austerity that the highest wisdom, Vijnana, is Brahman, for wisdom is that in which creatures are born, and it is that by which creatures live. Thus it is announced that all disciplines and subjects of study, the realization of Brahman, Brahma Vidya, is the most sacred, holy, and esoteric. Contemplate on the 5 sheaths of the woman. Food, Anna, is not to be decried. That should be the O of the wise. The vital airs, Prana, are all food. The physical body is the gift of food, and the vital airs have the body as the vehicle. So, food should not be slighted. That should be the resolution. The waters, in conjunction with the fire in the stomach, become food. In the water that comes down as rain, the fire of lightning is inherent. So, whoever is established in the splendor of water is aware of the splendor of food and is persuaded to revere it. Food is the Guru, for it leads you on to the knowledge of Brahman. Therefore, it should not be treated with disrespect. That must be observed just like a O by the aspirant. Since the physical body is the transformation of food, it has a food sheath, Annamaya Kosha. The vital airs form the vital air sheath, Prana Maya Kosa. Weighing between good and bad, right and wrong is the function of the mind sheath, Manomaya Kosa. Fixing upon a step with a purpose in view is the function of the sheath of intuition or spiritual wisdom, Vijnanamaya Kosa. Finally, the joy of achievement is tasted by the sheath of bliss, Anandamaya Kosa. Rise from the gross to the subtle stage by contemplating on the vital breath. The vital air sheath is the first instrument in order to progress with the Brahmic outlook, that you are Brahman or not the body, etc. It is subtle, separate, and different from the body. It is activated by and saturated with the god of wind, Vayu. It pervades and subsumes the entire food sheath. You can say that the vital air sheath is the soul of the food sheath, for it makes it function from head to foot. It cannot survive without the vital air, Prana. It is the motive force. It has 5 varieties: breath, downward breath, diffused breath, rising breath, and digestive air, Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, and Samana. By contemplating that the vital air sheath is the Atma of the food sheath, the notion that the body is the self will disappear. You rise from the gross to the subtle. Breathe, Prana, is like the molten metal in the crucible. By effort, the vital air sheath can be experienced. The vital air appears in the form of the breath. The vital air activates the head. Diffused breath, the right part of the body. Rising breathe the left digestive air, the central, and downward breathe the lower part of the body. The vital air moves from the heart through the nerves to the face, nose, etc., and reaches the head. From there, it motivates the various nerves flowing through the body under different names. With distinct names and distinct functions, the vital air that functions around the navel is, for example, called the digestive air. Mantras illumine the Atmic splendor. For the mind sheath, the Yajur Veda is the head. The hymns form the right wing, chanting the left wing. Brahmanas are the souls and the Atharvana Veda is the tail. The mantras of the Yajur Veda are used very much in sacrifices. With them, food is offered ceremonially in the sacrificial fire. Hence, it is considered as the head. The sound of sacrificial prayer, Yajus, produces auspicious modification. That is also the reason for the significance attached to the other Vedas. Thus, all mantras become the causes of mental modifications. These in turn illumine the splendor of the Atma. So, the Vedas and the mystery of their syllables belong to the science of the Atma itself. The Vedas become eternally valuable and eternally existent. The Atharvana Veda treats various rites to win relief from evil forces and ailments. So, it is described as the tail. The mind sheath merges in the sheath of intuition and later into the bliss sheath. Finally, the aspirant passes beyond even that into the region of pure being, Sat. Jai Sai Ram.